When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
Hi everyone, I'm Deb Flashenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Deb Flashenberg, and I'm your host of Yoga Birth Babies. And today we're going to talk about the red flags of postpartum. So we're going to dive into understanding PMADs, perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. We're going to look at the difference between baby blues and postpartum depression, as well as the emotional, mental, and physical signs of PMADs. And of course, once we've identified those signs, what kind of support you can seek, and then how to build your own support. I think this is a really important conversation to listen to. The numbers that we understand about PMADs is 1 in 5 people will have a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. But that 1 in 5 is just the reported number. Those that I've spoken to that support people with PMADs think it's more like 1 in 3. So given how many people will fall into this category, it's so important to understand how to identify this and how to find the support and help. So to have this conversation, I have Sydney Pollack-Tobert. She's actually been on the podcast in a different role. This time she's speaking as an LCSW, a licensed clinical social worker, but last time she was here, she was speaking as a new parent, sharing her birth story, and she was a student at PYC. And when I thought about doing this particular episode, I immediately thought of Sydney. She's incredibly kind and empathetic and warm. And let me tell you a little bit more about her. So as I mentioned, she's a licensed clinical social worker. She's a certified perinatal mental health therapist and a child therapist located on the Upper West Side. Cindy has trainings in interpersonal therapy in the perinatal period, perinatal grief and loss, Ackerman relation model, child-parent psychotherapy, and more. And Sydney's journey into working with pregnant people began after several years of working with children and out of a desire to support parents as they welcome their children into the world. And as I mentioned, Sydney was one of our students, so she's also a mom, and she's got 2 adorable dogs. All right, so that's a little bit about Sydney and a little bit about what we're going to talk about in this conversation. But before we get to that talk, I always love to give updates about what's happening at Prenatal Yoga Center. So the best way to check out our most current schedule is to go to our website. That's going to have our class schedule for our online classes, our in-person classes, our on-demand classes, as well as all of our workshops. We offer, I think it's about 6 to 8 different workshops a month. We've got everything from childbirth education to newborn care, lactation prep, CPR. I mean, there's so much off the top of my head. There's just so many workshops that we work through, and it's all really to help support you in this perinatal period. So head to our website, PrenatalYogaCenter.com. Check all of that out. While you're there, you can look at our blog. I've been writing it for about somewhere between 16 or 18 years. So there's a lot on there. And you can also check out our past podcasts. And then while you're there, if you happen to be someone that you think would have a great topic or be wanting to share your birth story, we also have an application for the podcast. Because I'm always interested to hear from the community about ideas or topics that you think we should cover. So check that out. Okay, we're going to take a super quick break. When we come back, please enjoy my conversation with Sydney.
Hey, it's Paris. You know, I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
Hi, Sydney. It's so good to speak with you again.
Hi, great to speak with you too.
I'm really excited. We haven't chatted in a while. How old is your daughter? She's a year and a half? No.
Yeah, she just hit her 18 months.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe we got that spot on.
It's an incredible time. She talks, she walks, she tells us she doesn't want to eat what we want to give her. So it's great.
Oh, well, I'm really excited to chat with you in a different way because last time you were on the podcast, you were sharing your birth story, which is fantastic. But now you have a different hat you're wearing. So you're not just mom, you are a LCSW. So we're going to speak about the whole PMADs perinatal world and use that other part of your brain. So I guess before we jump into what I'm calling red flags of postpartum, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and what led you to working with kids and in the perinatal community?
Yeah, great. So when I decided to become a social worker, I wanted to work with women who've experienced traumatic experiences, generally like domestic violence. And so when I started social work school, they asked you like, what population do you not want to work with? And I said, I don't want to work with kids. It'll be too sad. But then they give you the population you don't want to work with, sort of like see if you do want to work with them. And it turns out I did. So I worked with the kids in a school. I loved it. I love working with kids. I got really lucky because in social work school, you do internships. And my second year internship then hired me. And they were getting a grant that was for young kids. So kids like 0 to 5 and pregnant people. And so I had this great opportunity, like right out of school, to work with really little kids, obviously also moms who are postpartum if they're really little, and pregnant people. And then when I left that job to start private practice, I wanted to work more with pregnant people. And I was like, actually, I don't feel like I'm super well trained in working with pregnant people. So I then sought out trainings through Postpartum Support International and received my certification and sort of went from there. And it's been like a great experience to do sort of the circle of life. So.
And just kind of throwing this out there, how have things in your awareness of the perinatal world, or maybe just your understanding, shifted or changed since you became a parent?
That's such a great question. I remember doing a consultation a few years ago before I became a parent, where the mom was like, I really want someone who is a parent. And I was like, well, that's not me. I'll find you someone who is a parent, because I understand that you want someone to have gone through that experience. I think that probably I was okay working with this population before, but it does feel different in some ways now that I've gone through it, to go through the experience, from start to finish, the hard parts, the great parts, all of it. It feels like a little piece of connection. I don't think you have to have gone through it, but it feels sort of special to me to have gone through it myself and then be able to, I feel very lucky that I get to work with this population.
Yeah, it is a really amazing population. I've been working in the perinatal world for 23 years, and my son's only 13, so I worked in 10 years before, and it was a different perspective after, but it is such a unique time in someone's life to have the honor of being there with them, and I'm just so happy I had that time with you. All right, but before I go down that rabbit hole, because I just absolutely adore your daughter and loved having you guys in classes. But before I go down that road, let's actually stick to topic, Deb. And we're going to jump into PMADs. So I think we should probably start with PMADs and just maybe an explanation of what is that.
Yeah. So PMAD stands for Perinatal Mood and Anxiety Disorder. It's an umbrella term. So it includes more than just depression and anxiety, but those are the ones that everyone knows that are most common is prenatal and postpartum depression, anxiety. There's also panic disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, whether it's related to birth, pregnancy, any sort of traumatic experiences. There's perinatal OCD, there's bipolar disorders, and there's postpartum psychosis. So there's actually a lot that encompasses in PMADs. And it's a big term.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people just think of the baby blues and not really understand the difference. So let's actually talk about that. What is the difference between the baby blues and postpartum depression?
Yeah. So the baby blues, 80% of new mothers like report feeling, and that's like report feeling, a lot don't report it, the baby blues in the first few weeks after the baby arrives. And then 1 in 7 will experience like more serious depression or anxiety during pregnancy or postpartum. And again, also probably more because it's underreported. But the baby blues, they go away with rest, food, support, and time. It's like your hormones are crashing, right? Like you just had a baby, your body was building up all these hormones, and then like the baby's gone, you birthed the placenta, and so your hormones have sort of tanked. And so there's just a lot of emotions that come with it. Also, you're sleep deprived. Depending on how your birth went, you might not have eaten for hours. And so you're catching up on all of that. And so the baby blues, like that mood like shift should go away. And when it doesn't go away, that's when we get more concerned that it's in the PMADs territory.
So what are some emotional, mental, and physical signs of PMADs? That way people can understand what might be a passing moment of depression or anxiety and what might be a sign that something's deeper.
Yeah. So I think like a big one is feeling overwhelmed or like you're failing. That's like a big one. And of course, like we know you're not failing, like the transition to parenthood, whether it's your first child or your second child or more, is so hard. And so that's like a really big one, is this idea that like you can't do anything right. You're failing at being a parent. Things aren't going well. Specifically with like depression, sadness, crying, feeling overwhelmed, irritability, and anger, difficulty sleeping, some insomnia, either like changes in appetite so that you're eating more than usual, and like more than like maybe if you're breastfeeding that you need to eat, and you're eating like as a coping skill, or eating like less than usual, big mood swings, feeling like apathetic, like you just don't want to do anything, or exhaustion that's beyond what feels like it should be normal. So
I guess I'm having multiple questions in my brain at the same time. So one is how long can it last? But the other is, can it show up later? Like, can someone be kind of grooving along for the first, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4 months, and then it hits? So it's kind of like this, it's a timeline question, I guess.
Yeah, I think those are great questions. For in terms of how long can it last, my like go-to answer is always, it depends. It depends on how severe. It depends on your arc of symptoms, right? Like when did it start? Did you get help? Like, did you recognize it? What are other things going on? Like, is sleep still really hard? Do you have help? Like, is there a supportive partner? Are you doing it alone? And then there are going to be ups and downs, like in the same way that there are sleep regressions for our kids, like there are going to be things that are easier and harder. The idea is like over time that you regain like your confidence and you can grieve the life that you used to have. You might start making new meaning and moving on. So that could happen. It hopefully happens. And like everything changes so much. The thing that sort of came up when you asked your question was like, well, at a certain point, people stop checking in on you as much. They stop offering their help as much. They're like, oh, well, you've been a parent for 6 months. Like, you've got this now. And so when that sort of like extra support and care dwindles, like, was that your whole support network? Is it hard to reach out for help now? Those kinds of things can all impact how long it lasts. And it can, I think that I read a study saying that like it takes 2 years to sort of fully restore back to your like the hormone balance of and who you are. And now you have to care for a 2-year-old. So I think that I think the DSM says you can be diagnosed anytime within the first year postpartum, but I think that we know more now that it's much longer than that. And the less treatment that you get, it makes it harder because it just reinforces that feeling that you're failing, even though you're not failing.
I really actually appreciate that it has that 1 to 2 year span of being understood as PMADs, because I can imagine someone might not recognize this is due to that shift of parenthood like 6 months later. Because they're probably thinking, I've been doing this for 6 months. How am I suddenly feeling this now? Or maybe it was always there, but just greater. Maybe as the demands hit more of parenthood, or maybe someone's shifting back to work, or like you
Right.
said, their support system. And then as I was thinking about that 2-year mark, for some folks, they might be thinking about having another child at that
Mhm.
point. So they might have just gotten themselves on steady ground and then throwing themselves back into that hormonal fluctuation. That's a lot.
Right. And there's a lot that comes with that too. Like, was there trauma with the birth and with postpartum? Like, and now you want to think about doing it again. Like, there's so much like emotional tax that goes into all of those questions. And so if like you're someone who was maybe muscling through it this whole time, then a lot of that could come sort of like crashing down. And again, like that feel that like failure or not being able to do enough comes rushing back in.
You actually hit on something that we can literally do a whole nother podcast on, but it is the idea. And I see this a lot. And I'll be honest, I had this with between my kids, of the idea of when I got pregnant with my second, the idea it was a really hard birth, and then having to face doing it again. And I know that's come up with some of my students, because I've had students in tears while pregnant saying, oh my God, how am I going to do this again? Like you said, like there's sometimes birth trauma that goes unchecked. Oh, let's actually go into that for just a moment though. So where does birth trauma go into the whole PMADs, or is it just maybe PMADs is a side effect of that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it could be a little bit of everything. And so like trauma, I think, thinking back to my own birth story, like I said that I had a dramatic birth story, but it didn't feel traumatic. And so trauma is like an event that can be traumatic. And it's also like how you feel about it after the fact. Two people can go through the same event and someone can feel that they have all these symptoms and lasting challenges, and someone cannot feel those things. And it has nothing to do with someone being like stronger or more resilient, but rather just like the way that our brains have processed the trauma and our bodies process the trauma, what we've been through in our life. And so yeah, it can depend. There can also be, it's so complicated, like co-occurring disorders with like trauma. Like a lot of the symptoms of like PTSD have like depression or anxiety in them. But you can have both. You can have like a pre-existing trauma history. I'm just sort of like throwing everything at you.
Yeah, no, I want to hear it.
Pre-existing trauma history, pre-existing depression, like depressive, like sort of like makes it harder to deal with this traumatic experience. It's all very complicated. And so, yeah, it's a lot to unpack. It's hard to have been a birthing person, and it's hard to be a parent, and it's all very hard. So
I really think it comes down to everyone should have a therapist.
I mean, that is what I feel, that everyone should have a therapist. So,
well, my husband's a therapist, so I'm always like, go. I think it's important. I think having somebody to process things with, not just as, their friend, but someone that really is listening. But that's, again, another tangent. All right, I'm going to pull myself back in. So what signs and symptoms can tell somebody that they need help? Because you gave some emotional signposts that they might have PMADs, but when is it the point where someone's like, okay, things are a little bit rocky, but then they're like, okay, now I really need help?
Mm-hmm. I would say like a big sign is if it's interfering with something in your life. Is it interfering in your relationships? Is it interfering with your caregiving responsibilities? Like you don't want to do it, which is okay sometimes. But if it's like significantly interfering, or if you just feel like it's too much, like it's all the time, it's weighing you down, like you just can't keep doing it. And then like most importantly, if you're having like any thoughts of wanting to hurt yourself or someone else or your baby, like that's an immediate sign for help. Like do not wait, like seek help so that you don't have to have that anymore.
Oh, yeah, those are good. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, let's talk about risk indicators that someone may be more at risk for PMADs. So we're going to take a break. We will be right back.
Are your business expenses playing hide and seek? With Uber for Business, the small spends that slip through the cracks, like rides and meals, go right where you need them. Because it integrates with leading expense platforms, you can say goodbye to surprise costs, missing dollars, or chasing receipts. Everything's track downable. Uber for Business. Make small steps that make a big impact. Learn more at uber.com/small steps.
After Zoomies at the dog park, it's time for Drive Up at Target. In goes a big bag of kibble and one squeaky chicken toy for the good boy. Drive Up that's ready when you are, only in the Target app. Just tap Target.
Okay, so we are back. So I'm wondering if this is because it's perinatal. So is this something people should think about before they're even pregnant or while they're pregnant in preparation for postpartum? But are there risk indicators to be aware of that somebody may recognize that they're more at risk for PMADs?
Yeah, I think there are risks. There's definitely risk. And so like if you know you have a risk factor for anything, like even let's say you have like a risk factor for diabetes, like you want to be screened regularly for that and make sure that you're not missing your like diagnosis. So yes, if you have like a risk factor that I can go into in a second, like I would be aware of it. I would make your medical or provider, whoever your provider is, like aware of it. And if you want to, you could always like preemptively be like, let me do some therapy to keep an eye on this while I'm pregnant, because I know that my hormones are shifting, my life is changing. And so I just want to like have someone see me, maybe even at my baseline, like when I'm doing really well, so that they can kind of also help me keep an eye on if things are shifting.
And then what are some of the risk factors?
Yeah. So previously being diagnosed with a PMAD is like a big risk factor. If it's like a subsequent pregnancy, family history of any mood disorders or PMADs, big symptoms or complications during pregnancy, your personal mental health history is like a big risk factor. If you have a history of depression, anxiety, OCD, bipolar disorder, those are things to look out for as well. If you've had any significant mood changes during hormonal changes, so thinking like going through puberty, if you have like significant PMS during your period, like that's another one that you want to look out for. Endocrine dysfunction. So if you have a thyroid imbalance or other endocrine disorders, you're thinking like your hormones are shifting. And so this is something to look out for. And then really important ones are social factors. So social supports. Does your family live far away? Do you feel like you have people in your network? Health inequality, interpersonal violence, financial stress, families in the military, teen parents, and parents of multiples. If you're having more than one child, whether that was like your plan or not, that's very stressful.
That's great. That's a big list. And as I was listening, I was getting more stressed at some of those thoughts. So I was like, wow, this is a lot, especially the multiples. I mean, they're all huge. I guess the one that hit me with the multiples, because I'm thinking, I remember, I'm not going to say totally struggling, but I was overwhelmed, like how handling one and then handling two,
Mm-hmm.
that boggles my mind. And I know people do it and they do it beautifully, but I think that would be my personal tipping point. You mentioned something about support systems. So let's actually thread that out a little bit more. So what are your suggestions in building a support system prenatally in preparation for postpartum? And I also want to talk about kind of adding to that question, how does one do it if they don't have family around? Because I'm thinking about a lot of our New York City families that move to the city for a reason usually, and then not often having family around.
Yeah. Obviously, I think everyone should find a therapist or a psychiatrist. If you're worried, there's just like no harm in at least a consultation. Finding your village, I think, is like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. So like actively seeking that out, looking into classes. I definitely found a lot of support through your classes. And there are other classes. There are support groups. Postpartum Support International has support groups that are free. So things like that. I think all the hospitals also have support groups. Thinking about also like writing down what you might need from your family or friends so that you know, like, these are concrete things that I might need. And it makes it a lot easier once you've written it down to ask for it. And I think also really important is having a provider that you trust and you feel confident can help you if you need it.
I like that. And I like the idea of really writing down what you think you need, because I can imagine in the moment, I don't really, it's been a while since I've been postpartum, but in the moment, people might say, how can I help? And you might not remember. And so writing it down, be like, hi, I would really love your help with, I don't know, coming over and chatting with me or helping me do my dishes or something. Because I know friends are always like, yeah, just let me know what to do. But maybe not taking advantage of that. I really like that. And of course, classes are super helpful. So what are some resources or referrals you'd like to share?
Yeah. So I've mentioned Postpartum Support International. I think that's an excellent resource. They have support groups, they have a hotline, they have a directory for finding therapists. The Motherhood Center is an amazing local resource. They have so much stuff. They have like a day treatment program for if you're really struggling. They have groups. Selene Institute is also another one. And then if you want to look more independently for like a therapist, I think Psychology Today is always a good place to start. You can filter by, actually just looked, you can filter by like the perinatal population, and you can filter by your insurance too. And then there's also just like really great insurance-based spaces now too, because I want to think about like cost effectiveness for people. Hello Alma is one, Open Path, Grow Therapy, and Headway are all just like some low cost ways to find therapists, or just therapists in general. And you can filter most of them by specialty.
What I love about some of them, I know that Alma and I'm guessing Headway and probably, what's the other one I keep hearing on podcasts? BetterHelp, that you can do them online. Because I think about the therapist I see myself, and I do it online between things, because sometimes it's hard to, especially as a new parent, getting to an appointment.
Yeah.
Like you can figure out maybe your kid's nap or when they might be at daycare or something and slipping it in as opposed to having to go. I know there's value in person too, but for new parents, it might be really helpful to take advantage of the online stuff.
Yeah.
What is there anything else before we take another break? But is there anything else about the red flags of postpartum that I haven't asked that you think are really important?
I think it's really important to talk about these things. You can talk about them if you don't feel them. You could talk about them if you're worried about them. You could talk about them if you did experience them, because the more we talk about them, the less sort of scary it seems for like us individually, the less like lonely and isolated we'll feel. So the more we just feel comfortable talking about them, whether you've been through them or you're worried about them, like it makes it easier for us all to normalize it and make it seem like something that we can access as a community and less sort of taboo.
I really like that you were, as you were speaking, I was thinking about the whole idea of normalizing it, because we don't want someone to have these feelings and think, I'm not doing this right, which they might already feel, and then look at the person next to them who's looking like happy and rosy and everything's going their way. If we normalize it, then I think if someone is struggling, they recognize this is a normal thing that happens, and they might be more apt to reach out for help and feel less embarrassed or ashamed. So thank you for bringing up the whole normalizing. And I think it's important that we do that. Okay, we're going to take another break. When we come back, what is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents? Okay, we will be right back.
New Vitamin Water Zero Sugar Pineapple Passion Fruit is packed with vitamins, just like the amount of peas we packed in that sentence. It's packed like your tote bag, the one you stole from your ex, or your overpriced half a studio apartment, or extra rushed rush hour traffic. Packed like your calendar, triple booked at 5, of course. Grab a Vitamin Water. Did we mention it's packed with vitamins?
Okay, we're back. So you are a parent, but you're also a therapist. I'm very curious where you're going to draw from. What is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents?
You know, I wrote down something ahead of time that I was like, this is my most important tip. But I also just want to say, like, my tip is that you're doing a good job, right? Like, you are the best parent to your child and you're doing your best and you're doing a good job. And that you should remind yourself of that daily. Like, even when things are hard, like, there are things that you are doing well and you love your child, and that's all that matters. Like, you're doing a great job.
I like that. But what was the one that you wrote down?
Oh, I was going to say, if you're worried, there's no harm in consultation with a therapist. Like, and if you don't like that therapist, find a new therapist. Like, there are so many therapists. I think it's easier to access therapy more now than ever. So there's no harm in just chatting with someone and doing the consultation. Most people offer a free one, and then take it from there. So.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? Because I think, first of all, I love that you're pushing for therapy, because I think it's super important. And I'm not saying that in a self-serving way in any way, but I think it's super important. But how does someone know if they have the right fit with a therapist?
Oh, that's such a great question. There's so many ways to know. I think, like, the one thing that I've learned from clients who have come to me after finding someone who's not a good fit is like, it can be like a spidey sense, like an inkling, like, oh, I don't know about this. It can be like, maybe they're just not the right person in your life right now. Like even personally, like I had a therapist that was excellent for the time of life I was in. And then I was like, maybe I need like a perinatal specialist, you know, and know someone who's like, that is their whole work right now. And they should make you feel good. I think like it can be hard, but it should make you feel good and like you're doing okay and that they're going to help you find your way to feeling better. And so I think like it's obviously important to go through the engagement process with like getting to know each other. But if you're just not feeling it, if you're avoiding it, then maybe like it's not a good fit. And you could always try a new therapist and you're like, actually, maybe that was a good fit. So,
that popped into my head because I love that we're suggesting that one-on-one support, but then someone who may have not ever had a therapist, they go in, they try it, and they may not know, like, is this what it's supposed to feel like? So Thank you for answering that question. It really just popped in my head. All right. So where can people find your work?
Well, I'm not like on Instagram or anything. So I work on the Upper West Side. I see people in person, or I do virtual sessions. You can find me on my website. It's my first name and half of my last name. Sydney Pollack, LCSW.com. I'm always happy to chat with people, and help people find therapists. It's like a hobby of mine. So,
you help people find other therapists?
I do. I like genuinely enjoy finding therapists.
You're like a concierge.
Yeah. I feel that everyone should, clearly I feel everyone should have a therapist. And if you can't find one, I want to help you find one. So, that's where you could find me.
You are the nicest person. You are truly the nicest person. Oh my God, Sydney. I miss having you in class. All right. Well, thank you so much for your knowledge, for shedding some light on PMADs, and for, as we mentioned, helping normalize it and knowing some of the signs and symptoms. So this is really important. So thank you for all your time.
Thank you. Great to talk with you.
Great to chat with you.
This has been an episode of Yoga, Birth, Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Thanks for listening.